The United States and NATO allies have ruled out sending troops to Ukraine. This comes after French President Emmanuel Macron said that sending troops to Ukraine cannot be ruled out. United States, Ukraine's biggest ally in its war against Russia, says it has no plan to send troops to fight in Ukraine. NATO allies like Germany, United Kingdom and Italy also said there is no change to the agreed position that no European country or NATO member state will send troops to Ukraine. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg also denied considering sending troops to Ukraine. However, Stoltenberg insisted that the military alliance will continue to support Ukraine. Ukraine is losing more territory on the battlefield. In the latest, Ukraine's military said that its forces have withdrawn from 2 more villages near the eastern town of Avdiivka. However, Ukraine says Russia witnessed significant losses in the fight for the villages. Earlier this month, Russian forces captured the strategic town. A Moscow court has imprisoned veteran human rights activist Oleg Orlov to 30 months of jail. He has been charged for discrediting Russia's military and voicing his opposition on the Ukraine war. Now, Oleg Orlov chose to stay in Russia after its invasion of Ukraine. The veteran activist has continued to criticize his government despite increasing repression. Recently, he not only took part in anti-war demonstrations in Russia, but also accused President Vladimir Putin of leading a descent into fascism. The Houthi rebels say they could only reconsider their Red Sea attacks on commercial ships once Israel ends its aggression in the Gaza Strip. When asked if they will halt the attacks if a ceasefire deal is reached, Houthi spokesperson said the situation would be reassessed if the humanitarian aid was free to enter. This comes after Greek-owned Bulk reported a missile hit. The Houthis have launched now more than 45 attacks on commercial and military ships in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden since November 19th. And the pace has picked up in recent days. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with the family of a soldier who died in southern Gaza. Netanyahu said that the Israeli forces will not give up until they achieve absolute victory in Gaza. Israeli PM's visit comes after President Joe Biden said that Israel has agreed to pause its offensive during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan if a deal is reached to release some hostages. Jordan's King Abdullah II participated in operations airdropping relief and food to people in the Gaza Strip. Earlier, 6 C-130 aircrafts, including 3 from Jordan and 3 others from the United Arab Emirates, Egypt and France, dropped aid over the enclave. Officials said that Abdullah also participated in airdrop operations over earlier this month. Meanwhile, Jordan is urging its Western allies to lobby Israel to increase aid coming from the kingdom via Kerem Shalom on the border. As Jordan airdropped crucial aid over Gaza, people rowed boats into the sea collecting what was believed to be aid dropped over the water. Hundreds of Palestinians also gathered to try and get some of the assistance falling from the sky. Most humanitarian aid for Gaza goes through the Rafah border, crossing with Egypt. The United Nations says 138 truckloads of aid entered Gaza. Last week, the World Food Programme said it has paused food deliveries to isolated northern Gaza. United Nations says over 576,000 people in the Gaza Strip, which is a quarter of the entire population, are one step away from famine. A senior UN aid official warned that widespread famine could be almost inevitable without action. This as aid remains blocked from entering northern Gaza by Israeli forces. According to UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, some 97% of groundwater in Gaza is reportedly unfit for human consumption. Asylum applications in the European Union has jumped by 18%. According to European Union Agency for Asylum, around 1.14 million applications were received in 2023. The highest level since the 2015-2016 migrant crisis, that is. The new data is expected to fuel an already heated debate about migration. Now, as far as the right parties across the continent are trying to woo voters over the same issue. According to data, Syrians and Afghans remain the largest applicant groups. Now, in the wake of the Israel-Hamas war, the number of Palestinians applying for asylum rose to a record high of nearly 11,600. Meanwhile, Germany is still the favorite destination of asylum seekers in the EU. China's special representative for Eurasian affairs will visit Russia, Poland, Ukraine, Germany and France. Chinese Foreign Ministry says the visit will take place from March 2nd, while adding that the main agenda of Li Hui's visit will focus on the second round of diplomacy talks to promote a political settlement of the Ukraine crisis. China says the most important thing right now is to maintain peace. High voltage drama erupted in India's northern state of Himachal Pradesh after Rajya Sabha elections. The ruling Congress party lost the state's lone Rajya Sabha seat after 6 of its MLAs voted for the rival candidate. The Speaker of the State Assembly has expelled BJP 14 lawmakers. The leader of opposition in the State Assembly, Jairam Thakur, claims Chief Minister Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu has resigned from his post, while the CM came out to clarify against this claim. US President Joe Biden and Donald Trump have won the presidential primaries, edging closer to a rematch in November. However, the substantial numbers of votes against them demonstrate the challenges they face in this race to power. Biden's victory came in the backdrop of significant opposition over his support for Israel. Now, the state is home to a large Arab American community who have registered their discontent with Biden's handling of the war in Gaza. The percentage of uncommitted voters in the Democratic Party is sitting at about 15%, and the share is expected to increase. Two Mexican mayoral pre-candidates have been killed ahead of the country's largest electoral campaign. In the town of Maravacho, Miguel Angel Zavala Reyes was shot dead on Monday afternoon. Later that day, in the same town, opposition candidate Armando Perez Luna was shot by two men on a motorcycle. On March 1st, the electoral campaign will kick off on March 1st, like we said, for Mexico's largest election. Over 20,000 offices, including the presidency, will also be on the ballot. Mexican Economic Minister Raquel Buenrostro have described US calls to impose tariffs on steel imports from the country a political motivated move, while adding that the measure is not good for commerce. She also said Mexico will impose tariffs on steel if the United States enacts such measures first. United States has alleged a lack of transparency regarding the country of origin of steel and aluminium products imported from Mexico. Nine people were killed after police in Rio de Janeiro launched an operation in several of the city's sprawling low-income neighborhoods. The target was the area controlled by the Red Command drug trafficking group. It was still dark when police officers raided several communities in the city's north. Terrified local residents shared videos on social media in which intense gunfire could be heard. Thousands of children stayed home with public transport and schools shut ahead of the operation. Huge fire engulfed the Royal Plastic Factory in the West Bank city of Hebron. The local fire department and civil defense had initially failed to put out the fire. Residents were urged to stay away from the fire and to move any nearby vehicles to avoid further damage. Now, the cause of the blaze or any associated casualties have not been disclosed by the authorities as of now. Meanwhile, a fire also broke out in a hotel in a famous resort in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. In Gulmarg, firefighters received a call about a huge fire in the hotel in Pine Palace Platinum. Officials claim the fire has been doused. Fortunately, there have been no casualty in the incident, while adding that they are investigating the cause of fire. Till now, there is no update on any casualty. A wildfire has crossed from the US state of Texas into Oklahoma, where the wildfire prompted evacuations. Now in Texas, the wildfire blazed through 250,000 acres. This happened in mere 28 hours since the fire started. On Tuesday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued a disaster declaration for 60 counties. Meanwhile, in Bolivia, residents were evacuated in boats from the northwestern city of Cubija. An extraordinary flood of the Acre River left a large part of the city in Cubija submerged in water. Residents boarded the boats carrying their belongings. Now, according to officials, the locals have been moved to temporary shelters. The Popocatépetl volcano is showing some activity since early Tuesday. Mexico's Disaster Prevention Agency reported that over 77 exhalations carrying water vapor, gas and ashes were registered through its monitoring system. 952 minutes of tremor of high frequency and low amplitude was recorded in the last 24 hours. A volcano tectonic earthquake of magnitude 1.2 was also recorded. Light ash fall was reported in neighboring municipalities in the state of Mexico. Hundreds of lanterns took over the skies around a small town in northern Taiwan, putting out a spectacular light show. The spent lanterns fall back to earth, littering the countryside around Pingji in the mountains outside of Taipei. The lanterns are launched into the skies powered by small wads of burning paper, soaked in oil as a way of seeking good fortune and wishes for the year ahead. The activity was traditionally carried out at the end of the Lunar New Year, which marks the start of spring. Meanwhile, San Francisco residents could soon spot drones in the sky thanks to a new proposed law. If passed, the drones will come under the jurisdiction of San Francisco Police Department. Called the Safer San Francisco, the fate of the proposal lies in the hands of the city residents. The ballot measure proposes the use of more technology in a city that has shied away from it due to the privacy concerns. Once passed, measure will allow the police to install new security cameras in public places, use facial recognition and an AI in video surveillance. This comes at a time when the city's crisis of drugs, homelessness and crime have reached a flashpoint. There is an acute shortage of space for data centers in Europe. The lack of space has worsened due to the high demand for AI-related data. Big players like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Meta and ByteDance are expanding rapidly, but suitable space and access to electricity are not keeping up with their expansion. The UK-based Global Commercial Real Estate Services predicts that only 8.2% of space will be vacant and available in 2024 across major markets like London and Frankfurt. According to experts, the rise of data center prices is benefiting the real estate market operators, but leads to less space for European enterprises and businesses. Toyota Motor did not respond to the trade union's wage demands in the second round of pay talks held on Wednesday. For the past 2 years, the world's biggest automaker had accepted the union's demands in full on the first meeting, which has long served as the pace setter for Japan's spring labor management wage offensive called Shunto. Toyota last week said that it would continue negotiations with the union after the first round of talks. Economists project hikes of about 3.9% on average from big firms, exceeding a 3.58% pay rise deal struck in 2023 that was the highest in 3 decades. Country Garden Holdings said a liquidation petition has been filed against the embattled developer for non-payment of a loan worth $205 million, adding to the woes for China's liquidity crisis-hit property sector. Country Garden said in a regulatory filing to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange it would resolutely oppose the petition, which was filed by creditor. Country Garden's shares fell more than 12% in early trade. The petition is set to revive home buyer and creditor concerns about the Chinese property sector's debt crisis at a time when Beijing is ramping up efforts to boost confidence in the industry that accounts for a quarter of China's GDP.